Long before airplanes, cargo ships, railways, and the internet connected the modern world, ancient civilizations had already created remarkable networks that linked continents through trade, culture, and shared knowledge. These ancient trade routes became the invisible highways that carried not only valuable goods but also ideas, religions, inventions, languages, and entire civilizations across vast distances. They transformed isolated kingdoms into interconnected societies, laying the foundation for what we now call globalization. Today, globalization allows products, information, technology, and people to move around the world faster than ever before. But the roots of this global connection stretch back thousands of years into humanity's earliest civilizations. The story begins long before written history recorded the rise of great empires. Even prehistoric communities understood that cooperation through exchange could improve survival and strengthen relationships. One village might possess high-quality stone for making tools, while another had fertile farmland capable of producing abundant crops. Instead of living in complete isolation, these early societies discovered that exchanging resources benefited everyone involved. What began as simple barter between neighboring communities gradually evolved into organized trade across enormous distances. As civilizations became larger and more sophisticated, their demand for rare and valuable goods increased dramatically. Kings sought luxurious materials to display their wealth and authority. Priests required precious metals and rare incense for religious ceremonies. Skilled craftsmen searched for unique materials unavailable in their own regions. Merchants quickly realized that transporting these valuable products could generate enormous profits. Soon, long caravans of traders began crossing deserts, mountains, forests, and rivers in search of distant markets. Every journey was filled with uncertainty. Travelers faced harsh weather, dangerous wildlife, difficult terrain, and the constant threat of bandits waiting to attack valuable caravans. Yet despite these risks, trade continued expanding because the rewards were simply too great to ignore. Among the most famous of all ancient trade networks was the legendary Silk Road. Rather than being a single road, it was actually a vast network of interconnected routes stretching across thousands of miles. These routes linked East Asia with Central Asia, the Middle East, and eventually Europe. Merchants traveled through deserts, crossed towering mountain ranges, and navigated dangerous valleys carrying goods worth small fortunes. The journey could take many months and sometimes even several years before traders finally reached their destinations. Silk became one of the most famous products transported along these routes. Its smooth texture, brilliant appearance, and remarkable quality fascinated wealthy buyers throughout the ancient world. In many royal courts, silk became a powerful symbol of prestige, influence, and luxury. However, silk represented only one small part of this enormous trading system. Caravans also transported spices, jade, ivory, gold, silver, glassware, fine ceramics, gemstones, perfumes, medicines, and beautifully crafted textiles. Every caravan represented the combined efforts of countless farmers, artisans, miners, and merchants working across different civilizations. Trade connected economies that had previously known almost nothing about one another. Yet goods were not the only things moving across these ancient highways. Ideas traveled just as quickly as merchandise. Religious beliefs spread from one civilization to another. Scientific discoveries crossed political borders. Mathematical knowledge reached distant scholars. New farming techniques improved agricultural production across entire regions. Even artistic styles began influencing cultures thousands of miles apart. Ancient globalization was already taking shape centuries before anyone imagined the modern world. Another remarkable trade network developed across the vast waters of the Indian Ocean. Unlike overland caravans, merchants relied on powerful sailing ships capable of carrying enormous quantities of cargo. Seasonal monsoon winds became nature's greatest gift to ancient sailors. Experienced captains carefully timed their voyages to take advantage of these predictable wind patterns. By understanding the rhythm of nature, they could travel safely between Africa, Arabia, India, Southeast Asia, and China. These maritime routes became some of the busiest commercial highways in the ancient world. Coastal cities flourished as international trading centers. Harbors welcomed ships carrying products from distant civilizations. Markets filled with merchants speaking different languages and representing diverse cultures. Every successful voyage strengthened connections between continents. Ancient Egypt also played a vital role in international trade. The mighty Nile River functioned as a natural transportation network connecting cities throughout the kingdom. Egyptian merchants exported grain, linen, papyrus, gold, and finely crafted luxury goods. In return, they imported cedar wood, incense, precious stones, copper, and exotic animals from neighboring regions. These exchanges strengthened Egypt's economy and expanded its diplomatic relationships. Mesopotamia developed similar trading systems thousands of years earlier. Located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, its cities became centers of commerce connecting multiple civilizations. Merchants carried metals, timber, textiles, agricultural products, and pottery across extensive regional networks. Clay tablets discovered by archaeologists reveal detailed records of business transactions made thousands of years ago. These documents demonstrate that contracts, loans, and commercial agreements already existed in surprisingly advanced forms. Trade encouraged the growth of cities. Busy marketplaces attracted merchants, craftsmen, travelers, scholars, and diplomats from many different regions. Cultural diversity became one of the defining characteristics of prosperous trading centers. New ideas emerged wherever people from different backgrounds met and exchanged knowledge. Innovation often followed commerce. Prosperous trade also encouraged rulers to improve infrastructure. Roads were repaired. Bridges were constructed. Wells were dug across deserts. Caravanserais provided shelter for merchants and their animals during long journeys. These resting stations became places where information spread as quickly as valuable goods. Travelers exchanged news about distant kingdoms, political changes, scientific discoveries, and commercial opportunities. Knowledge became another valuable commodity moving across ancient trade routes. Powerful empires understood that controlling important trade routes meant controlling enormous wealth. Many wars were fought over strategic cities located along major commercial networks. Whoever controlled these crossroads often controlled international commerce itself. Taxes collected from merchants generated tremendous revenue for imperial governments. This wealth financed magnificent temples, palaces, libraries, and public works. Trade became one of the driving forces behind the rise of great civilizations. Yet prosperity also attracted competition. Rival kingdoms constantly sought to dominate profitable trade corridors. Alliances formed and collapsed depending on economic interests. Diplomacy frequently centered around protecting commercial relationships. Peace often proved more profitable than prolonged warfare. Successful merchants became respected members of society because they connected distant civilizations through commerce. Their journeys required courage, patience, negotiation skills, and extraordinary knowledge of foreign cultures. Every successful expedition expanded humanity's understanding of the wider world. Every new trading partner opened opportunities that had never existed before. Ancient trade slowly transformed isolated civilizations into parts of an increasingly interconnected global network. Although separated by deserts, mountains, and oceans, people discovered that cooperation through commerce created benefits far greater than isolation. These early trading systems demonstrated that economic relationships could cross political, cultural, and geographical boundaries. They proved that prosperity often depended on connection rather than separation. The ancient world was becoming smaller with every successful journey. Every caravan crossing a desert carried more than merchandise. Every ship sailing across the ocean transported more than cargo. They carried ideas capable of changing civilizations forever. They carried cultures destined to influence future generations. They carried innovations that reshaped the course of history. And they quietly laid the foundation for the interconnected world we know today. As trade routes expanded across continents, they began creating something far more powerful than simple commercial exchanges between distant kingdoms. They gradually formed the world's first interconnected economic system, where the success of one civilization increasingly depended upon cooperation with many others. Although people living thousands of miles apart had never met, their lives slowly became connected through invisible networks of commerce. A farmer harvesting spices in India could unknowingly influence markets in Persia, while a silk weaver in China supplied luxury goods desired by wealthy nobles in Europe. This growing web of exchange represented one of humanity's earliest steps toward globalization. Ancient merchants soon realized that trust was just as valuable as gold. Successful trade required honesty, reliable partnerships, and agreements that both sides respected. Reputation became one of a merchant's greatest assets, often determining whether future business opportunities would succeed or fail. Experienced traders built relationships that sometimes lasted for generations. Entire families dedicated their lives to maintaining commercial networks stretching across continents. Along these routes, languages also began to evolve. Merchants learned foreign words and developed common methods of communication to negotiate prices and exchange information. In many busy trading cities, multiple languages could be heard in a single marketplace. Translators became highly respected because they connected cultures that otherwise could not understand one another. Communication became one of the most valuable tools in international commerce. Trade also encouraged remarkable scientific progress. Sailors improved navigation techniques by carefully observing the stars, ocean currents, and seasonal weather patterns. Cartographers created increasingly accurate maps that allowed future travelers to explore with greater confidence. Knowledge gathered during one journey often helped thousands of merchants who traveled afterward. Every successful expedition expanded humanity's understanding of geography. Mathematics also advanced through international trade. Merchants needed reliable systems for measuring weight, distance, time, and currency. Accurate calculations reduced misunderstandings and increased confidence between trading partners. These practical needs encouraged mathematical innovation across several civilizations. Banking systems slowly began developing to support growing commercial activity. Carrying large amounts of gold across dangerous landscapes exposed merchants to robbery. To reduce this risk, early financial systems allowed traders to transfer wealth more securely. Written agreements, credit arrangements, and financial records became increasingly important. These innovations would eventually influence modern banking centuries later. Religion also traveled alongside commerce. Missionaries, scholars, and travelers introduced spiritual beliefs to communities far from their places of origin. Buddhism spread across Asia through merchants traveling the Silk Road. Islam expanded through commercial networks connecting Africa, Arabia, India, and Southeast Asia. Christianity reached new regions through both missionaries and international trade. Commerce became one of history's greatest vehicles for cultural and religious exchange. Art and architecture reflected these growing connections. Decorative styles blended together as artists encountered foreign ideas and techniques. Pottery, textiles, jewelry, sculptures, and paintings increasingly displayed influences from multiple civilizations. New artistic traditions emerged through centuries of peaceful cultural interaction. Food also became more diverse because of ancient trade. Fruits, vegetables, spices, herbs, and cooking techniques crossed continents through merchant caravans and trading ships. Ingredients considered ordinary today were once rare treasures transported across thousands of miles. The exchange of food permanently transformed diets around the ancient world. Trade influenced fashion as well. Luxurious fabrics, colorful dyes, precious gemstones, and elegant jewelry became symbols of wealth and social status. Royal families competed to obtain the finest imported goods available anywhere in the known world. International commerce encouraged creativity and craftsmanship on an unprecedented scale. Yet ancient globalization also carried serious risks. Trade routes sometimes spread diseases alongside valuable merchandise. Travelers unknowingly carried illnesses across continents where local populations possessed little natural immunity. Epidemics occasionally followed major commercial networks, affecting societies far beyond the original outbreak. This demonstrated that global connections could bring both opportunity and danger. Bandits also targeted wealthy merchant caravans. Valuable cargo attracted organized criminal groups operating along isolated trade routes. Governments invested heavily in protecting merchants because commerce generated enormous tax revenues. Military patrols guarded important roads whenever possible. Fortresses were constructed near strategic locations. Safe resting places reduced the dangers of long-distance travel. Security became essential for maintaining prosperous commercial networks. Powerful empires often competed to control major trade routes. Whoever controlled strategic mountain passes, rivers, ports, and crossroads could influence international commerce. Economic power increasingly became just as important as military strength. Some kingdoms became wealthy not because they possessed abundant natural resources, but because they occupied ideal trading locations. Geography itself became a valuable economic advantage. Cities such as Constantinople, Samarkand, Alexandria, and Baghdad flourished because they connected multiple regions through trade. Merchants from different civilizations gathered in these remarkable cities to exchange goods, ideas, and knowledge. Libraries expanded with books translated from distant languages. Universities welcomed scholars from many different cultures. Scientific discovery spread more rapidly than ever before. Ancient globalization encouraged cooperation that benefited entire civilizations. Even when governments disagreed politically, merchants often continued trading because economic partnerships served everyone's interests. Commerce demonstrated that peaceful cooperation frequently produced greater rewards than endless conflict. Historians often describe trade as one of humanity's greatest unifying forces. It encouraged curiosity rather than isolation. It rewarded innovation rather than fear. And it connected people who otherwise might never have known one another existed. Although the ancient world lacked modern technology, its commercial networks displayed remarkable sophistication. Caravans traveled thousands of miles with incredible precision. Ships crossed vast oceans using only the stars, wind patterns, and generations of accumulated experience. Their achievements remain among the greatest accomplishments in the history of human civilization. Today's global economy may rely on satellites, airplanes, digital banking, and container ships. Yet its fundamental principles remain surprisingly similar to those established thousands of years ago. People continue exchanging goods, services, knowledge, and technology across international borders. Businesses still depend on trust, communication, transportation, and cooperation. Markets remain interconnected despite enormous geographical distances. Modern globalization did not appear overnight. It evolved gradually through thousands of years of exploration, trade, and cultural exchange. Every caravan crossing the desert added another link to humanity's growing network. Every ship reaching a distant harbor strengthened relationships between civilizations. Every successful trade agreement proved that cooperation could overcome distance and difference. The ancient merchants who risked their lives crossing mountains, deserts, and oceans never imagined they were helping create the foundation of today's interconnected world. Yet their determination transformed history forever. They connected continents long before modern transportation existed. They shared knowledge long before the invention of the printing press or the internet. They demonstrated that ideas often travel farther than armies. Their journeys remind us that civilization has always advanced through connection rather than isolation. The story of globalization did not begin in the modern age. It began with the courage of ancient traders willing to explore the unknown. Their legacy continues every time a product crosses an ocean, a culture shares its traditions, or people cooperate across borders. The ancient trade routes may have faded into history, but the world they helped create continues to shape our lives every single day. And that is why the story of ancient trade routes is not just the history of commerce, it is the remarkable story of how humanity first became truly connected.